Hello, my friends. Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sana, Mrs. Perfectly Imperfect Keto, where being perfect is overrated and being imperfect is appreciated. Today is Thursday. It is April 13th. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in with what I'm going to prep for my dinner. I'm not hungry at all. I've actually done a lot of work around the house. I've also done my 1 mile of treadmill time. That has been going really well. I have really kind of impressed myself because I have been able to up the speed as far as the miles per hour speed that is on the treadmill. So I've actually been able to get my 1 mile done in basically less than 20 minutes, which is definitely amazing because at the start of this, I was around like the high 20 to 30-ish mark. So it's definitely been nice to shave off some of those minutes. So what I'm going to go in with for dinner is going to be what I purchased from Sam's Club. And I like to purchase it at Sam's Club because it comes in a 2-pack. But what we have here is simply just beef chuck roast. And this one right here, it was 4.89 pounds and it's at $5.18 a pound, making these two $25.33. So I'm gonna go in and I'm doing this exactly how my grandmother used to do it. So growing up, my grandmother, she used to simply sear and do her meats in the oven. So it was pretty much the old school way of doing it. So that is how I've always done it. So this is definitely the way of doing it pre the times of it becoming YouTube famous to do chuck roast in the oven. So what I simply do is it's been out at room temperature. It is best to have the meat at room temperature. You are going to definitely get a better sear with this meat being at room temp. All I simply do is I salt it very heavily with salt. So I'm just going to go in with my salting. And you definitely want to be generous with the salt because these are definitely big cuts of meat because they are roasts. So when it comes to a roast, you definitely want to heavily season roast because there's a lot of thick meat to get through with that seasoning. Okay. So I'm gonna go in this pan here with just some butter. I do like being able to sear it with some butter because I truly feel like it gives the meat a really nice good sear and a nice crispy bit char on the meat. So that is why I use some butter. I'm using my non-stick skillet, but if you have a cast iron, definitely go ahead with your cast iron. I don't have any issues using my non-stick. It gives me multi-purpose, just like a cast iron would for anyone. So I definitely just always go in with my non-stick. So I'm just gonna go ahead and salt the rest of the sides here. And I do have a YouTube short on this. So I have that also as well for the instructions that I go through. So I'm going to go ahead and continue salting this. But I did want to address some questions that I have been getting. So I know many have asked me if it's correct that I am not doing dairy at this time. And yes, I am still not doing any cheeses or any heavy whipping cream or anything like that. Simply all I'm using is just butter because, you know, it's definitely nice to have butter, especially in this instance. I'm using butter for my searing. But still yet,
I'm keeping away from cheese for the time being. I definitely want to try and experimenting with some cheese. I definitely want to be able to do my N=1 experimenting and to reintroduce cheese, only because I did have a hindrance, as some of you might have heard by watching my previous videos, when I was 2 years into my ketogenic way of eating. So 2 out of the 4 years that I did it, I did have something that started to hinder me, started causing me bathroom urgencies. So I definitely want to find out if it was the veggies that I was eating or if it was possibly the dairy. I'm not for certain. Let me just get rid of that tray. I'm not for certain what it could be, only because I was more so starting to do Carnivore at that almost getting to be my 3rd year of doing keto. So I did start incorporating a lot of vegetables, more so lettuce, because I started doing bunless burgers, but having the lettuce as my bun. I started doing a lot of unwitches. So if any of you have ever been to either Jimmy John's or Jersey Mike's, they do what is called an unwich, where they're simply replacing the sub bread and they are just putting all of your meats, your cheeses, whatever additional toppings you're wanting. Everything is getting wrapped in lettuce. So I used to do a lot of those. I was having large taco bowls. So these large taco bowls definitely had a lot of lettuce packed in to the bowl. So it could very well have been any vegetable. So that is why I'm just being really careful, only because I have been feeling amazing. I have been able to do my treadmill time. So my physical activity has definitely been very consistent. My mobility has been amazing. Um, it's just been life changing. Just the way I have been able to just truly heal in over 100 days has just been amazing. So that's why I'm not in no rush when it comes to reintroducing cheese. I'm going to try and experiment. I know a lot of other carnivores have mentioned that they've had a lot of luck with introducing raw dairy. I'm going to possibly try the raw dairy first and see if that at all makes a difference. I'm definitely going to do it as a proper reintroduction. So I'm only going to have 1 ounce of cheese, and I'm going to see if 1 ounce, whether or not it causes me any symptoms. So like any bloating, any, if I notice any irritation on my face. So any sort of bad feelings that my body gets after that cheese experience, I'm going to definitely watch out for it. So I follow Dr. Barry as well as Nurse Nisha on their private group. So they have been extremely helpful when it comes to doing a proper reintroduction after you have done triple B and E. So I know there is a lot of people, they've done their own thing, and that's okay. You know, everybody needs to do what is best for them and what's best for their journey. But for me, I needed to utilize triple B and E as an elimination. That is the way it was designed to be used by Dr. Barry as well. I know a lot of groups and a lot of other channels, they make it into a challenge. And you know, that is fine, because it's definitely a way that you can break through any sort of weight loss stall, or if you're having any hindrance, it's definitely useful for that. But I also think it's really important to also pay attention to the elimination side of it. All right, so I'm just gonna need a little bit more sear. I'm gonna go ahead and turn up the heat a little bit here. I'm hoping you guys can hear me really clearly. I'm wearing my headset, which seems to help when it comes to the audio. I actually have a microphone that I actually have with a camera setup. I still yet have to take the time to get my camera set up with that microphone, so that is to be continued. So hopefully that can improve the content a little bit more. So I apologize if any of you experience really bad audio or the audio sounding like I'm mumbling through the cooking noises that I'm doing here. All right, so with that heat turned up, it's progressing nicely now. But that is basically my focus is to continue on with the slow reintroduction that I've been doing ever since I had my final day of Triple B&E. So I'm just going to keep continuing on because that has worked the best for me to see what possibly might be hindering me or causing me any adverse side effects. All right, let me go ahead and take a look here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just flip this here. So they do have such a great, amazing sear. I'm going to see if I can pull one a little bit close. So that is the sear that I am looking for. So I'm just going to make sure that this is simply seared on all sides. But let me know, because I know there are a lot of other channels. So there is Hope with Mission Keto, and I'll go ahead and I'll link her in the description. She is doing no dairy for this month. And also Hyla from Crafty and Carnivore-ish. She has also joined that challenge and that experimenting of doing no dairy as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll drop their information in the description for you. But I'm curious to see how both of them feel doing no dairy, if they notice any differences at all, because I don't know if that was the component, as I'm saying, but if it is, I'm definitely feeling amazing. I think the biggest victory for me would be not having any bathroom urgencies, because that has given me so much freedom in my day-to-day life. It was so time consuming. It was taking so much time out of my everyday life. And I missed a lot of memories. So my family had to continue on with going out on the weekend. And I simply stayed home because I was simply in fear that we would go somewhere and I would literally have an adult bathroom accident, which definitely would not have been pretty. So once this sears on the other side, I'm going to go ahead and sear the sides as well, because we definitely want to get nice color all around. And I'm just going to go in with adding some water. I know you guys all know by now, I absolutely love the meat juices, the broth. And I love making my own sauce with the meat juices as well as some butter. So I'm going to go in with some water. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it, and we are going to bake this for about 4 hours. That 4 hours is really dependent on the size of the chuck roast you're dealing with, the thickness. So definitely gauge that according to the chuck roast that you're working with. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish searing these. I'm going to put them in the oven. And I will update you all once I take them out the oven at around the 4 hour mark. So stay tuned for that. All right, my friends, I just took the chuck roast out from the oven. So we have reached the 4 hour cook time. Let's go ahead and take the lid off. All right, so there's going to be that steam that gets released. And as you can see, that little bit of water that I added was really all this needed, because all I wanted was just a little bit of that rich broth and those rich juices. So I'm going to go ahead and just coat this a little bit with all the juices so it can definitely still stay juicy all around. All right, so now let's go in for the test. So let's take a look. Let me go in here. So as you can see, this is definitely very pull apart with this fork here. So it is completely soft right now, but still yet, as you can see, it's not dried out at all. So for about this size, close to about 4.5 pounds to 5 pounds worth, it generally takes, I noticed, about that 4-hour time period is the sweet spot that I have noticed, and it gets to be the exact texture and the doneness that I like and I prefer. And definitely when it comes to chuck roast, definitely take advantage of searing, because as you can see, we have this beautiful color here on that top, and the bottom has the same beautiful coloring. So I'm going to go ahead and just allow this to remain in the oven. The oven's going to be turned off, but my husband is still not home as of yet. I like to kind of wait for him for my 1 meal a day dinner. That way we can have a little bit of normalcy and sit down and eat as a family. So I'll just keep this in the oven. That way it can remain warm, and I will update you all once I get my food plated up. All right, friends, I do now have my food plated up for my 1 meal a day dinner. So I do have a substantial amount of that fatty, yummy chuck roast that we simply just slow cooked in the oven. I do have 3 over easy eggs that I have simply just salted. And in this serving dish, I have the meat juices as well as 2 very generous tablespoons of some butter. I just allowed it to melt in that hot meat juice broth. So I'm going to be able to use that as a dipping sauce. And this is it for my 1 meal a day dinner. So I'm going to go ahead and dig in while this is still hot. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you for joining me on this Thursday. I appreciate you all. Take care, friends.